Welcome to Dead Souls Social Club.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
If you enjoy our show and you find our research interesting, please leave us a 5-star review on your chosen podcast platform. Something that small really does go a long way in helping us out. You can find more about us and the research that we do by heading over to Instagram and searching our name. As always, thank you so much for joining us tonight. How did one of the modern age's most remarkable minds, a genius at the forefront of electricity, engineering, science, and philosophy, die penniless, insane, and alone in a New York City hotel room? Nikola Tesla's inventions would shape the technological revolution in the late 19th century and early 20th century. He would become the envy of other inventors and scientists and a role model for many others. But Tesla's life was not the story of triumph or glory that it perhaps should have been. It was instead to be defined by a constant struggle against adversity that he would never truly overcome. Accusations of fraudulent science and hoax claims, and the subject of fierce rivalry from his competitors. Today we are uncovering the real story behind the tragic life of Nikola Tesla. On July the 9th, 1856, a powerful lightning storm erupted over the remote Croatian village of Smiljan. Under a dark, starless midnight sky, occasionally illuminated by flashes of electric light and surrounded by the low, distant rumbles of thunder, a baby was born. The midwife reportedly backed away in fear, warning that the lightning had signaled a bad omen. The midwife told the mother, quote, "This child will be a child of darkness." The mother replied, "No, he will be a child of light." This is not a fairy tale, or the start of some horror movie. These are the documented actual words spoken by the superstitious folks involved in the birth of Nikola Tesla. It's quite literally the opening chapter to a dramatic story of a mystical figure and eccentric inventor who would go on to harness the power of lightning and illuminate the world with electrical energy. I say you couldn't write this, but it reads like someone actually did. Nikola Tesla was born an ethnic Serb in the village of Smiljan in the Austrian Empire, which is now part of Croatia in southeast Europe. He was born on July 10th, 1856. Tesla's father, Milutin Tesla, was a priest in the Eastern Orthodox Church, while Tesla's mother, Duka Mandic, made homecraft tools and mechanical appliances. She met Milutin through the Eastern Orthodox Church, as her father was also a priest and introduced Milutin to his daughter. Tesla would later credit his photographic or eidetic memory and creative abilities to his mother's influence. Even though Duka had no formal education, she was said to have an extraordinary memory and could memorize large parts of literature and books that she read. Tesla became a Serbian-American inventor, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, and futurist in his adult life. Perhaps best known for his contributions to the design of the modern alternating current, or AC, electricity supply system, and many other things. Even though it's now 2024, almost 100 years since Tesla made footsteps in the field of science and electronics, we still rely on the innovations of Tesla to power our daily lives. With a brilliant mind, at the age of just 25 years old, he got his first job as an engineer in Hungary. From there, he moved to France, where he worked in the electronics division for the Continental Edison Company. In 1883, his huge talent took him to the United States to work with Thomas Edison, the American inventor and engineer himself. Edison was the inventor of the electronic light bulb, amongst many other things. Now, the electricity that flows from the wall sockets in your home is there thanks to Tesla's work with alternating current, or AC power. Originally, the first electrical grid ever established in North America was built on an entirely different system, known as direct current, or DC power. This was a technology championed by Edison himself. Edison's DC current was revolutionary in its day, and it replaced the gas-fired lanterns in everyday homes with a soft glow of incandescent bulbs. But this direct one-way stream of electric current was fundamentally flawed by its inability to be converted to higher or lower voltages. The low-voltage current that was needed to power Edison's household electric lights was only able to transmit over relatively short distances, and that required a high frequency of generating stations to be built in the middle of urban neighborhoods. The AC current, which was championed by Nikola Tesla, had the advantage of being converted from high voltage to low voltage through a transformer. This allowed the long-distance transmission of electricity through high-voltage networks, which would then be converted to smaller substations to a lower-voltage distribution network for home use. We can see this at work in our modern-day electrical grid. Wooden poles that lines the streets carry the lower-voltage distribution system, while giant metal structures carry the high-voltage transmission lines that connect cities and towns with distant generating stations. Even though Tesla had arrived in the United States and was an employee of Edison, the two would quickly clash with their vastly different opinions. Tesla would prove that Edison's direct current was more expensive and inefficient. The greater the distance, the more energy was lost along the way, while Tesla presented his own system as an improvement, alternating current. High amongst Tesla's inventions was the AC induction motor. Tesla was the first person to convert alternate current electricity into mechanical work by using a rotating magnetic field to spin the drive axle of an electric motor. Tesla's work with AC generators led him to create the giant turbines that harness the power at Niagara Falls and thus supply clean hydroelectric energy to millions of people. This technology is still widely used to this day. You'll find Tesla's motor in your washing machines, ceiling fan, and hairdryer amongst countless other tools and appliances. In fact, when Elon Musk released his first electric vehicle in 2008, yes, he borrowed the inventor's name for its title, but more importantly, Musk put Tesla's AC induction motor at the heart of every Model S and Model X Tesla vehicle. Growing up was a difficult time for Nikola Tesla. He showed early signs of his intellectual gift as a young boy. He could solve complex math problems in his mind so effectively that his teachers accused him of cheating. They refused to accept that he was naturally intelligent. Tesla developed an eidetic memory, which basically means that he could remember everything that he was ever shown in extreme detail, even if he was only briefly shown the source information for a few moments. Tesla's fascination with electricity began early in his childhood, when he struck sparks of static electricity on the floor of his home. Tesla was desperate to understand how the light and sound was created. At the age of 7 in 1863, Tesla witnessed the violent death of his older brother in a horseback riding accident. This had a profound effect on Tesla, and records indicate that this trauma probably caused an imbalance in the developing mind of Tesla. His vivid imagination would become hallucinatory and uncontrollable, with the voice in his mind sometimes causing Tesla to struggle between distinguishing imagination from reality. Even more troubling as he grew older, Tesla quickly developed an unusual string of phobias and fixations. He developed irrational distaste for things like a hatred of women who wore pearls. He also became repulsed by female hair. Tesla also obsessively counted the steps that he made throughout the day and also measured the volume of every food that he ate, in a display of what we would know today as obsessive-compulsive disorder. Tesla, however, and potentially against all odds, learned to harness the erratic power of his brain and apply his vibrant imagination to creating new ideas and inventions. Although somewhat cliché, those that knew him indicated that he was almost a textbook mad scientist at times. Much later in life, Tesla would hardly ever make drawings or diagrams for his inventions. He was able to engineer test prototypes and early models, assembling a complex machine all within his own mind and from memory. He conducted his first experiments with electricity in 1875 while at Polytechnic University. His ideas meant that he began to conflict with his professors, who did not believe in Tesla's theories of improving the DC motor by inducing a rotating magnetic field. Tesla had lost interest in university completely by his second year, and by the third year he dropped out of university altogether. This wasn't due to him struggling. On the contrary, he found the course material unchallenging and strongly disagreed with the contents his professors were teaching. Tesla felt he could prove otherwise and do better. Tesla would suffer a complete mental breakdown in 1882 that would again bring him to near death. The stresses of working night and day to prove his AC theory wore him down entirely, but Tesla would not give up. While recovering from his breakdown, Tesla would suddenly have the design of an induction motor come to him in a vision. Seeing the machine flash into existence before his eyes, Tesla became more focused than ever. The next year, Tesla moved to Paris, where he joined the employment of the Continental Edison Company. Tesla continued his relentless innovation and quickly submitted his own plan for improving Edison's mechanical designs, which were approved by the company. In 1884, Nikola Tesla arrived in America to finally meet Thomas Edison and further his work in the field of electrical energy. Charles Batchelor, who was Thomas Edison's best friend, wrote a letter to Edison at the time of Tesla's arrival in the United States. The letter said, quote, "I know two great men. One is you, Thomas Edison, and the other is this young man, Nikola Tesla." Tesla had arrived in New York City with the clothes on his back, 4 cents in his pocket, and a few books of poetry, after he was robbed of his money and most of his possessions on the journey across the Atlantic. A violent mutiny had broken out among the crew of the ship that Tesla was traveling on, and Tesla was nearly thrown overboard. Still, Tesla was undeterred and looking forward to starting work with Edison. In fact, he wasted no time and went directly to see Edison the day that he arrived in America. Edison immediately dismissed any of Tesla's theory on alternating current, however, and so Tesla went to work fixing broken DC motors and generators. You see, even while working for Edison's DC-powered electrical company, Tesla still continued to champion alternating current, and in 1885 he was given the opportunity to start his own operation, the Tesla Electronic Light Company, which was funded by investors who hoped Tesla would develop an improved system for electronic art street lamps powered by high-voltage AC. Subsequently, Tesla invented a unique and beautiful new street lamp with automatic adjustment for maximum efficiency. The engineering and design was a resounding success. However, in the first of what would become many examples, Tesla was proven to be a much better scientist than he was a businessman. When Tesla pushed for more money to develop the new AC motors and electrical transmission equipment, the investors turned on Tesla, pulling their funding and took the patents for the arc lamps with them, leaving Tesla with nothing but worthless stock certificates to show for his time and work. Tesla had by now resigned from the Edison Company to focus on the Tesla Electric Light Company, so he was now in another low point in his life. And so the smartest man in New York spent the winter of 1886 and 87 digging ditches for just $2 a day. In the spring of 1887, Nikola Tesla would finally catch a break. After demonstrating his AC induction motor to a pair of wealthy venture capitalists, the Tesla Electric Company was funded and Tesla was given his own laboratory at the corner of Liberty and Broadway in New York City. It was here that Tesla created his first masterwork, a paper titled, quote, "A New System of Alternate Current Motors and Transformers," unquote. Tesla's plan laid out everything that would become the modern-day electrical grid, and he was given the opportunity to present his work to the American Institute of Electrical Engineers at Columbia University. Following this, Tesla was able to sell patents for his AC system to George Westinghouse for $25,000 in cash, $50,000 in stock, and a royalty of $2.50 per horsepower for every electric motor produced. Westinghouse was hugely impressed by Tesla's innovation, and he is the first to truly believe that alternating current will power America into the future. Tesla spent a year in Pittsburgh at the Westinghouse Electronic Company headquarters, where he finalizes the design for the alternating current motors, transformers, and generators. As Westinghouse spreads AC power across the eastern seaboard, Thomas Edison refuses to let his direct current systems go down without a fight, and a fierce rivalry begins. This era would come to be known as the War of the Currents. Now, to be clear, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with DC power, and it does still have many important applications today. In fact, in the modern world, batteries produce direct current power, and most small electric devices require AC power to be converted into DC power. Think of anything you plug in that has a black plastic box on the power cable or a large black plastic plug. That is there to essentially convert AC back to DC. There is most certainly room and requirement for both formats. But the thing DC does not work for is generating and transmitting electricity. Under the Edison system, there had to be a coal-fired generating station for every 2 miles of electrical cable, and the low-voltage energy delivered to households was only enough to power Edison's light bulb and not much more. When you think of the practicalities and the impact on the environment, not to mention the logistics, especially in a current electricity-thirsty world, it's just not viable. It wasn't much different back then either in reality. Still, in spite of the obvious flaws, Edison defended his position and attempted to sway public opinion away from AC power by pointing out the dangers of high voltage transmission. Which is a fair point. Safety standards were not very high in the late 1800s, with people often getting fried by rogue power lines. Hey, it was the Industrial Revolution. We were still learning, right? Well, there are some conflicting reports about Edison conducted a bunch of screwed up experiments where he would electrocute animals with high voltage AC current to prove the danger of the system. Edison also championed the introduction of the electric chair as a new form of capital punishment, and recommended Westinghouse AC generators be used to deliver the fatal shock just to drive home the killer potential of AC. If nothing else, Edison is a shrewd businessman, or at least no stranger to dirty tricks and underhanded business techniques. In all of this madness, the Edison Manufacturing Company released a documentary film entitled, quote, "Electrocuting an Elephant to Death," unquote. So the film wasn't metaphorical, and yes, they actually did that in the movie. Guess what else they hadn't developed back then? Yep, animal rights. These dirty dealings also included circus-style public demonstrations, and also Edison employing spies and agent provocateurs to undermine and sabotage Tesla's research and public demonstration of his achievements. The intention was to spread panic about the consequences of electrifying the country with alternating current. Edison himself stooped to write in alarmist articles in which he described alternating current as a constant threat to homes and to people. The high point for Tesla's career would come in the 1890s. Throughout this decade, he would rack up milestone achievements and discoveries, but it would come at a cost. Tesla used his Westinghouse payload to establish a gigantic new laboratory in the Tribeca neighborhood of New York City. He occupied an entire floor of a 6-story building. It was here that Tesla would make some of his greatest accomplishments. Among them was the fluorescent light bulb and neon light tubes. By using high-frequency AC current, Tesla could energize certain gases and bring them to a state of incandescence. These are just 2 more of his inventions that are still used widely in the present day. By 1891, Tesla was beginning to experiment with wireless electric lighting. Now, this was a significant rock star move for Tesla. By broadcasting extremely high frequency and high voltage AC current through the air, Tesla could illuminate tubes of phosphorescent gas. So just imagine this. You have a light bulb just sitting on your desk, or in the kitchen, or in the palm of your hand even. You flick a switch across the room and bam, the bulb illuminates, all on its own, with 0 wires. We don't even have this technology available today in many areas of day-to-day life. In fact, wireless charging has only been a thing in the last 8 to 10 years, and even then you still need to place the item you are charging onto a wireless docking station. Tesla was doing this over 100 years ago. In order to make wireless electricity possible, the inventor developed his namesake, Tesla coil. You probably know these items today as a lightning machine, which you've probably seen at a science museum or a movie. They have also become pretty popular at events like Coachella and Burning Man in an artistic display of futuristic technology. The coils themselves are famous for shooting giant lightning bolts from the tip of the coil. It's definitely a cool feature of the Tesla coil, but they do a hell of a lot more than just that. Interesting fact, some of you may know of a Tesla coil if you are interested in military weapons. That's because for many years a Tesla coil was rumoured to be a Soviet superweapon that would be tank mounted and send huge bolts of lightning out into the battlefield and electrocuting all soldiers in its path. This is actually complete bullshit. The story was made up by the Edison Company to make the general public fearful of Tesla's design and associate it with the enemy. But how does a Tesla coil actually work? Well, a Tesla coil is an electrical resonant transformer. It generates high voltage, high frequency AC electricity and broadcasts out through a low frequency long wavelength radio. So essentially, in a very similar way that we transmit sound through radio waves. Tesla was transmitting electricity in 1891. If this idea had panned out, then our lives would be radically different today. Instead of power lines feeding electricity into your home, the neighborhood or town would just have a Tesla coil tower broadcasting out electricity, powering every electrical item in your home. Wires would never have existed. You also would never need to plug things in. And finally, you would have a massively decreased risk of electrocution in the home. The electricity would be in the air, all around you, just like radio waves. Tesla did his best to sell the wonders of his wireless electricity. The inventor is best known today for the images of him holding giant bulbs in his hands, seemingly all by magic, and the famous photograph of Tesla just casually reading a book in a room full of lightning. The lightning was deliberately created for the photograph, but the machine would have worked without the giant bolts of lightning firing from it. This era of Nikola Tesla as the master showman is how he is most widely remembered today. Do you wonder why wireless electricity never caught on? Simple answer: money. If electricity is in the air all around you and freely accessible, then how can you manage it and sell it? Another great creation of science, stifled by businessmen. Think the water-powered motor engine. Tesla spent the early 1890s touring the world to give lectures on the potential of alternating current and wireless electricity. This culminated with the Columbian Exposition at the Chicago World's Fair in 1893, where Tesla and the Westinghouse Company built an AC power system that generated enough electricity to power the entire city of Chicago 3 times over. The fairground was so brightly illuminated by Tesla's AC electricity and fluorescent lighting that it became a spectacle unlike anything the world had ever seen before. This accomplishment secured the victory for AC power in the War of the Currents. By October of that year, Westinghouse was awarded the contract to build a hydroelectric generating station that would harness the power of Niagara Falls using Tesla's alternating current generators. As if that wasn't enough, around this time Nikola Tesla was accelerating his early work with radio signals. He found that if 2 of his Tesla coils were tuned to resonate at the same frequency, then they could transmit and receive powerful radio signals. Using this method, Tesla was able to transmit a radio signal over 50 miles from New York City to West Point. Not only could it transmit radio signals stronger than any other signals of its day, but it could also incorporate imagery into the signals, and Tesla demonstrated the very first early version of a fax machine in 1896. Tesla also demonstrated radio control of a mechanical vehicle at the Electrical Exhibition in 1898. He demonstrated this by piloting a 4-foot-long battery-powered motorboat that he controlled wirelessly through radio waves from the dry shoreline. Tesla's remote-controlled boat was so revolutionary that his fellow scientists and eyewitnesses literally had to see it even to believe such a thing was possible. Many scientists were still convinced that it must have been a hoax, and that it couldn't possibly work how Tesla had described. Of course, it would be decades before this technology reached the general public, after it was initially seized for military application and development. As an aside, Tesla is not credited with the invention of the X-ray process, but he would create the first ever X-ray photograph of a human body using his own homemade X-ray tubes in the 1890s. The first official use of X-rays under clinical conditions was by John Hall Edwards in Birmingham, United Kingdom on the 11th of January 1896. Whereas Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen, who was a professor at Würzburg University in Germany, is credited as the inventor of the X-ray in 1895. Just for clarity, Tesla was achieving the same results during the same year, although Tesla wasn't pushing to develop the technology himself. Even as alternating current was gaining momentum and pushing towards a complete takeover of the electrical grid, the Westinghouse company was experiencing financial struggles. George Westinghouse went to Tesla and told him that he couldn't afford to pay the royalties that he promised him and continue to develop his new technology at the same time. Tesla responded immediately by tearing up his Westinghouse contract and forfeiting 100% of his induction motor royalties. A savvy businessman probably would have worked out a more nuanced deal in this situation, such as reduced royalties, or even a pause to allow business to improve while still tracking monies owed. But Tesla gave it all up, every single penny, purely because he thought that the success of Westinghouse and alternating current was more important than his personal wealth. Ultimately, this innocent belief and attitude from Tesla would lead to ruin and significant advantage being taken of him and his inventions. Unfortunately, karma did not shine on Tesla, nor reward his selflessness. In 1895, his New York City laboratory burned to the ground and took most of his work along with it. Despite this, Tesla would still go on to patent his radio wave inventions in 1897. At this very same time, a young Italian inventor and electrical engineer by the name of Guglielmo Marconi was working on solving wireless telegraphy over in the UK. Marconi had his own wireless transmission system, but it could only work over long distances when being amplified by a Tesla oscillator. This is how Marconi made his first broadcast across the English Channel. Marconi was an Italian nobleman and had wide support from the British royal family and wealthy Americans, including Thomas Edison. The Marconi Wireless Telegraph Company had massive success in the New York Stock Exchange too, moving from $3 per share to $22 in just 1 year. By December 1901, Marconi made his first radio broadcast across the Atlantic Ocean. Tesla was unbothered by Marconi's success because he knew that the young inventor was using 17 of Tesla's own patents in order to enable his long-range transmissions. Tesla saw Marconi's success as being dependent on Tesla's designs. But Tesla's calm confidence was shattered in 1904 when the US Patent Office suddenly and surprisingly made the decision to grant Guglielmo Marconi with a patent for the invention of radio. It has never been fully explained why Tesla's existing claims on the technology had been ignored. The simple answer would probably be that Marconi was surrounded by wealth and royalty and knew people in high places, while Tesla, on the other hand, chose to reject such things, and in addition to his already established naivete. Marconi would go on to win the Nobel Prize in 1911 for the invention of radio. It was at this point that Tesla became furious. Tesla sued the Marconi company for copyright infringement in 1915, but he had very little money to back up his case and challenge it in court effectively. It was not until 1943, after both Tesla and Marconi had both died, that the US Supreme Court would uphold Tesla's initial radio patent and find him the true inventor of the technology. Even with the outcome in favor of Tesla, the history books still credit Marconi as being the man who invented radio. What's worse, even with the court case being found in favor of Tesla, It was later revealed through court documents and individual documentation from those involved in the final judgment that the court only ruled in favor of Tesla so that the United States military could exit out of a massive government contract with the Marconi company for the use of radio technology and avoid paying huge royalties to the firm. It's unlikely the patent documentation was even looked at by the court, even though Tesla was the rightful owner of the technology. Things really started to fall apart for Tesla when he began pursuing terrestrial stationary waves. His theory was that the Earth itself had a massive potential for conducting electricity, and that by using a giant version of the Tesla coil, called a magnifying transmitter, he could harness electromagnetic waves within the surface of the Earth to transmit unlimited amounts of electronic current to a receiver on the other side of the globe. It sounds like science fiction, but the theory was solid. Tesla's first small-scale demonstration of this technology was at a facility that he constructed in Colorado Springs. Tesla built a coil that was 52 feet in diameter and 19 feet high. It was connected to a giant 142-foot rod with a metal ball on top. The goal was to produce electrical discharges that were on the scale of natural lightning. And it was successful. Tesla harnessed millions of volts of electricity through his creation, generating contained storms of lightning and thunder that electrified the ground around him. People nearby could strike sparks on their shoes just by walking. Tesla's claim was that the giant coil was able to transmit electricity over 26 miles away wirelessly to light a collection of incandescent bulbs. Due to his demonstration in Colorado Springs, Tesla was able to secure $150,000 in funding from J.P. Morgan in 1901. Tesla used this money to construct his final great invention, the Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island, New York. This gargantuan, ultra-high-powered Tesla coil, standing at 186 feet tall and 57 feet in diameter, would transmit electricity, messages, sound, and even facsimile images across the ocean to the UK and Europe, using the Earth as a conductor. In concept, Tesla had imagined wireless telephones, fax machines, and essentially a very basic Victorian period internet. But in reality, Wardenclyffe never did much of anything. Tesla blew all of the money on its construction, and when he went back to Morgan for additional funding, he was flatly refused. J.P. Morgan saw more profit investing his money in Marconi, so took a step back with Tesla. Still, Tesla continued to write to Morgan, letter after letter, promising more and more grandiose possibilities, such as unlimited free wireless energy and communications across the entire world. It was, however, the word free that Morgan found the most off-putting. When J.P. Morgan died in 1913, Tesla took up writing to his sons in a tireless, desperate effort for more money. They were even less interested. Tesla sold off all of his possessions and took out loans in an effort to complete Wardenclyffe, but he again came up empty-handed. Tesla eventually lost everything and is forced to abandon his project entirely by 1906. There is no evidence that the giant tower was ever fully operational, or that Tesla accomplished anything with it at all. The only known sign of activity came one night in 1903 when Nikola Tesla flew into a rage over yet another letter of rejection from J.P. Morgan. Tesla cranked the generators to maximum, and Wardenclyffe erupted with a gigantic bolt of lightning that flashed and lit up the New York skyline. Eyewitnesses stated that for a brief moment it was like daylight in New York City, but at midnight. Sadly, a decade later, the tower was demolished and sold for scrap, and all of the money went to Tesla's creditors. After 1916, Tesla was liquidated and bankrupt. He continued to make some small inventions and devices like speedometers and frequency meters, which would net him enough income to avoid homelessness. But his glory days were over. Tesla never settled into a home of his own, and he bounced between New York City hotels, often leaving without paying his bill. Tesla remains poor throughout the 1920s, retreating from the professional world and from the public. He spent the majority of his time feeding pigeons in Bryant Park, so much so that the city would formally name a section Nikola Tesla Corner, which is essentially the most clear illustration of the tragedy that became of the once great man. There are locations all around New York City where Tesla accomplished amazing, revolutionary things. He had multiple laboratories across Lower Manhattan, and yet his name is found over the corner of a park where he slowly went mad, feeding pigeons. The fact that Nikola Tesla suffered with mental illness is not hard to see. He wasn't some prophetic wizard, and he wasn't a lunatic either. Tesla was an incredibly smart yet naive man whose extraordinary brain proved to be as much of a curse as it was a blessing. Nikola Tesla's swan song came on his 75th birthday in 1931. Tesla's face appeared on the cover of Time magazine, and he received a birthday congratulations from the most esteemed scientists across the world at the time. This included Albert Einstein, who called Tesla a true genius. In the final years of his life, Nikola Tesla will hold a yearly press conference on his birthday, where he would emerge from his hotel room to inform a collection of reporters about his latest inventions and discoveries. None of these announcements were legitimate or even very groundbreaking anymore, but Tesla seemed to find joy in sharing his thoughts, and the press kept returning every year to listen. Tesla's announcements ranged from a motor propelled by cosmic rays and the interplanetary communications to the discovery of a brand new, never-before-known source of energy. All of these theories came to Tesla in the same way they always did, by a vision of the finished product which he would then work back from in his mind, although he was never given the funding or support to develop any of them. Tesla promised that he would disprove Einstein's theory of relativity, and also claimed that splitting the atom would likely not release any energy. Quite possibly the most infamous of these announcements was when Tesla revealed that he had invented a particle beam accelerator, a laser weapon or death ray, a device so horrifically powerful that it would end war completely because, as Tesla put it, no one would be able to defend against it. The United States military actually took this very seriously enough to confiscate all of Tesla's property and estate after he died, including any research and system blueprints that he had created. Whilst in the decades since Tesla's death, the US military has developed laser systems and particle beam weapons, it's not clear if any of these are derived from Tesla's initial research, as those weapons remain classified. Nikola Tesla lived a long life and finally passed away in 1943 at the age of 86. He was alone in the bed of his hotel room. Tesla was a man far ahead of his time. He had the unique vision that could find solutions to problems that were thought unsolvable, and we owe a lot of our modern life to the innovations that Tesla provided. His name has often been besmirched over the years, but without any merit. Tesla was too naive for capitalism, not cutthroat enough for his business competition. His mind was a battleground that even Nikola Tesla could never truly command. There are inventions, patents, and creations out there that Tesla designed, developed, and created, which could have changed the world more than 100 years ago. Hell, they could change the world now. But sadly, they are kept from us to enable capitalism to thrive. Additionally, his work on devices of military value may never see the light of day and will likely remain under lock and key forever. Nikola Tesla is known to have theorized and developed free wireless electricity, radio, X-ray, wireless image transfer, a particle accelerator, teleportation systems, electronic hover technology, and stealth systems and technology, to name just a few of his significant pieces of work. His name, however, has been stifled. Nikola Tesla died from a coronary thrombosis, or a heart attack. On the 12th of January 1943, 2,000 people attended a state funeral for Tesla at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in Manhattan. Following the funeral, Tesla's body was transported to the Ferncliff Cemetery in Ardsley, New York, where he was cremated. Nikola Tesla's ashes are displayed in a gold-plated sphere at the Nikola Tesla Science Museum in Belgrade, Serbia.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show tonight. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review on your chosen podcast platform and subscribe to our show so that you never miss an episode. Our shows aren't sponsored by any company or corporation, so any support you can give us goes a long way in supporting the work that we do. From all of us here at Dead Souls, sleep tight.